it out. Can you just give me a little bit of sound check, so to make sure that everyone can hear you clearly?
Sound check, 1, 2, 3. Is that helpful?
Lovely. Sounded very good. Thank you very much. So, Kaylee, first of all, like I said, thank you for giving up your Sunday afternoon to come and talk to us on the Sunday Supplement Show. I've been trying to get you on for quite a while because, it's been a long time coming. In that time, I've seen your organisation go from strength to strength.
Amen.
So I want you to actually get you on to see if you can kind of, to give us some information about things that the help that is out there for some people that are struggling with various issues within their lives. Like I said, I'm grateful for you to be. So, for the listeners today, tell me about Key for Change. What is Key for Change?
So basically, if I'm very honest with you, Key for Change is everything that I ever needed in my darkest hour. And so when I graduated, I basically created what I needed. My intimate relationships were very problematic. I often went for very selfish men who had lots of potential, but for whatever reason were unable to bring their potential to life. And so, that resulted in me, I'm a Northwest 10 girl, kind of fulfilling a lot of the stereotypes that happen in like Brent. So I was single, I was uneducated, I was working at IKEA, big up the IKEA massive. I was a checkout captain, asking people to leave their yellow bags behind. That was me, and I did 10 years in the yellow and blue, so, and I just felt that there was much more I could do with myself. Yet I went to Preston Manor High School, didn't leave with any GCSEs as such, stumbled into Stanmore College and just kind of did a I think it was a GMVQ course with little direction. And I think for me, it was the adversity of being a single mum in a violent relationship where I kept going back, and that kind of rock bottom. So I'm a massive fan of rock bottom and the clarity that can come from adversity when life hits you hard.
Yeah. Do you believe that you have to reach to rock bottom before you can actually, because I've heard that said so many times, you must reach a rock bottom. Sometimes you have to reach a rock bottom before you actually have the courage to change things in your life.
Well, I think the challenge with rock bottom is it's unique to everybody. So what's your rock bottom may not be somebody else's, and watching someone you love sink to the bottom is incredibly difficult. So I think it's a very personal experience. Some people are more proactive. For me, back then, I was reactive. And when love gets involved and feelings, we won't be told. So those who don't hear will have to feel. You see, as grandmother says. So thankfully, I made a choice to learn from that. And I've been able to use adversity to my advantage. And I think, if we're talking about Brent, which is, for many people, it's a disadvantaged environment. Let's be real about that for many of us. I think there's a hope in there about how you can begin to think about, okay, so what do I need to use? What do I need to learn? How do I need to strengthen myself to be able to make something of myself in spite of my circumstances? But I also respect that not everybody has that drive. They have the potential, but they don't have the drive. It can hit hard.
Yeah, okay. So what was it? So, you kind of answered my next question, which I was saying, what was the inspiration for starting the organisation? But it was your personal circumstances.
Well,
I think. Was that what led you to psychotherapy as well?
I think if I think about it, really, I think the journey was, I began reading self-help books after watching Oprah, and self-help books inspired me to think about my education. That led me to go back to Stanmore to do an access to social sciences course. That access course then gave me the capacity to go to university where I studied psychology. And I did a 4-year placement, which had a work placement. And in my work placement, I went and volunteered at the prison at Wormwood Scrubs for 6 months. So when I finished my degree, I got my first job at Wormwood Scrubs as a drug and alcohol worker. But because I was mentored, I had a psychologist who took me under her wing. She was a black psychologist. And as a kind of grassroots girl, I didn't know how to navigate professional circles. I needed help. You know, I was educating myself, but I was battling incredibly with, you know, being the first in my family to go to university, feeling like I might be a sellout, feeling isolated, feeling alone. That process was very difficult, but by God's grace, I had mentors that really took me under their wing. What happened is when I got my full-time job in the prison service, I quite quickly realized, to be quite frank, there was a lot of, tended to be a lot of black people on the front line. We're doing the real tricky work. But in terms of making decisions and influencing policy, we're not there. So I found that very difficult because I was passionate about making a difference. You know, I was working in the community where I'd also come from. I'm working at Wormwood Scrubs. I'm from St. Ralph's Estate. So I found that very depressing after a while. I felt like my empathy was going. I could see that many people burnt out. And so my mentor encouraged me to continue to study, which I found annoying. Like, I felt like I got my degree, I'm good, you know, I've landed. But my mentor was like, no, carry on. And so I did a year's counselling course just to help me. And from that, I fell in love with counselling. Plus, I was working with prisoners. Prisoners really liked my style. They appreciated that I was grassroots, which amongst the psychologists I work with, there weren't that many grassroots psychologists. So I would bring relevant scenarios to people that they resonated with. And that then I just did my master's. But when I did my master's in Ealing at a private institute, and you know, I never had the money to pay for it. I took a lot of loans, but as far as I was concerned, I might as well take a loan for education rather than buy a fancy car, because enough of us was buying fancy cars. And yeah, most definitely. I funded it myself. And then what happened is, because I was training at a middle class institute, a private institute, I was now feeling inadequate. Some call that the imposter syndrome, because now I'm around lawyers, judges, people from the BBC. Here I am, you know, a grassroots girl. But what happened is exposing myself to that difference meant that my own aspirations went up, because when they qualified, they were going to open up their own private practice. It just wasn't a deal. It wasn't a thing. It was like, this is what we do. So with that, it inspired me that I would then open up my own business when I qualified, which is where Key for Change came from. When in the year of the riots at Tottenham, they were going to make me redundant. And I just found that so insulting when there was riots, prisons were full, and yet I was going to be made redundant. And that's what made me take power in my own hands. And that's where the beginning Key for Change was birthed.
So you mentioned about Oprah Winfrey. Is that when you, because I was reading your bio, it said about a book called In the Meantime by Ayanla Randant.
Amen, my brother. Listen, for all the ladies out there, if you've had your mayhem relationships, all the sisters, it is about, like, Jan Levansant was the first place I began. So, really? Oh God, yeah, because it was the only place I found solace. Everybody else took great delight in telling me that we told you so, we could see you was no good. And that's not really helpful when you've got 2 children to raise. It's not really helpful to you. It's very shaming. And I still had feelings. I was still battling with the to-ing and the throwing of that relationship dynamic. And so self-help books was my place of solace. That's where I began to read. You know, I couldn't afford therapy. Therapy wasn't something, you know, back then, therapy was what mad people did. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't do that. But I could buy a self-help book, because that book was the place where I got buddied up nicely and encouraged to think about, what did I do that promoted my own abuse? And I had to really check myself in terms of the things that I was doing that actually meant...
something though, Keely? Isn't that... Sorry to interject there, but isn't that something that a lot of women that are in toxic relationships or abusive relationships, they tend to, you know, kind of like put the blame on themselves to a degree. But I mean, is that right? Do you think that women contribute? Because that's a very powerful connotation to say that, you know, I contributed to the situation that I was in.
I did contribute to it, and people don't like it when I talk about this. People get really angry. And I think one of the reasons why people get angry when I talk about how I contributed to being in a violent relationship, because it means I had to take, it encourages people to think about what they do that contributes to their own difficult situation.
Sure.
And that's uncomfortable for people. So what I often find is people lash out at me. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean that other person gets off the hook. There was lots of wrongdoing.
Yeah.
But if I choose to continuously accept and continuously go back in spite of increased violation, then I can only see that I am contributing to the problem. That is my view, and that is something that underpins the therapy that I offer. I am not here to collude with you or to not help you to... if you don't want to block people, if you don't want to delete people, if you want to still keep them on your WhatsApp or show off your little new picture because you feel like you're hot, then you are still engaging with people. And that is unhelpful to you, you see.
So you're saying that's mixed messages that you'll be sending out to your partner, your other partner.
Yeah. It's called mind games. It's called mind games. It means you've not really let go. If you're overly consumed with trying to show someone that you've moved on or you got a new man, and then you have to parade that all on your socials, you're still plugged in at some level.
Oh, I get you. I get you. So it's all for show. It's
a mind game. And for example, the individual, my situation was not a narcissistic individual. Playing games with narcissistic individuals is dangerous.
Yes.
They
but
are...
You also said that we all got a bit of narcissism in us, right?
Well, it's a spectrum. Let's be frank. We all... I mean, I've done my hair today. I'm looking at myself in the mirror, giving myself a little ratings. We all have a level of narcissism, but what we're talking about is the high degrees when you're dealing with someone.
Dangerous levels. Because I suppose narcissism is maybe a trait in human behavior, right?
Well, I mean, if you go towards the medical model, it would be considered a mood disorder, a personality disorder. So it gets, and obviously I've worked in prisons, so narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths, I've gone the whole gamut. So I get it at a very dark level. But I also understand that I, as a highly empathic person, can also be drawn to highly narcissistic individuals. That is something I have to be very aware of. Is the truth?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting because they do say that sometimes we have we align ourselves to certain characteristics of a suitable partner, and we keep your friend may say to you, "Why do you keep going for that sort of man?"
Yeah.
And they would never understand why that kind of a man is a sort of man that attracts you.
Well, narcissistic individuals seduce, man. They can seduce the drawers off of you. Let's have the conversation. You see, so that seduction process is the process that hooks us in. And by the time we're vulnerable and weak, the problems start to arise. We start to justify it because for many of us, we don't want to be on our own again, or we can't believe that something so good has gone so terribly bad. You see, so it taps into our ego as the highly empathic person, and if you felt what you feel like is the love of your life, it's very difficult to just abandon that, especially as time goes on and commitments come in, children come in. It's very difficult.
So tell me about some of the courses that you offer at Keep the Change then.
So firstly, what I would say is, whilst I was working in prison, I delivered a whole raft of offender behaviour programs. And so what that did is it inspired me to think about, so what are the courses that I would like to create? The first course I ever wrote was called Preparing for Prison. And I actually wanted to make that a course for somewhere like my borough, Northwest 10, because so many of the men I grew up around were involved in low-level criminality and going to jail. When I'm walking on the wings and someone's like, "Yo, Key, wagwan, how's your mum?" Like, you clearly know people, and it's quite interesting that those men ended up in prison, yet I wasn't able to help them because they weren't risky enough. Basically, the ethos of probation is resource follows risk. So until you're a high level offender, you can't get any support from people like me. And I found that very difficult when I would see so many men I knew banged up, going in, going out. And then obviously I was there for a number of years. So by the time they're coming in, their crimes are getting worse. Then they get help from me. But, so it was just very sad. So preparing for prison was a course that would prepare men for prison because we needed to have the conversation, I felt. But it didn't go down too well because of the name. But I'm so authentic sometimes. I name things in such an explicit way. I'm always told I need to make things pretty, which...
Well, it's a bit of an oxymoron, isn't it? Preparing for prison. The two of them shouldn't really go hand in hand.
Yeah, but... Yes, but what do you do? And that's the fact is that, that's exactly the fact. But so many of you are. So let's prepare for prison then. Let's look at it. Let's look at what it's going to look like. Let's talk about double bubble. Let's talk about being banged up. Let's talk about what your life will look like as you go through the prison system. Let's have the conversation. Because if you want to live your best, so-called best life, and you want to floss and you want to drive fancy cars, yeah, cool. But there's a shadow side to that. There's a shadow to that. And
there's a trade-off, yeah.
There you go, right? Because you don't want to buy a bottle of Bud in the rave no more, no? No one don't want to buy a bottle of Bud. You want to buy a bottle of something expensive. Cool. Yeah? But there's a consequence if you're not legit. If you're legit, well, we're good, innit? But if you're not, there's a consequence to that. And we need to have that conversation because you get in jail. Because you're not that smart. You're not that savvy, although everybody thinks they are. And so that's was something I really wanted to bring. But you know what? I've learned, as I said before at the beginning, there is great lessons in rock bottom. And so people have to go through what they got to go through. And so what I did is I then, 2015, I left the job and I threw myself wholeheartedly into Key for Change. And today I write courses. So Pain into Purpose is my course that came out of lockdown. Lockdown gave me the...
That is one that really interests me, actually.
Yes. Listen, you have to stop me talking because I'm a talker, I can chat all day.
That's fine. I'll tell you what you can do for me, actually. If you're not in a rush, can you join me after the ad break? So we've got an ad break coming up in about 35 seconds. So if you can join me after the ad break, I'd love to talk in depth about that Pain into Purpose. That's the one that's really got me. And also Victim to Victorious.
Boom. You like that? Cool. Anytime. All right, I'll hold on for you.
So, yes, thank you very much, Key. So, just hold the line and I'll get back to you very, very shortly. Okay, so we're going to take a short commercial break. Please join me on the other side. We'll be talking to Keely Taverner, Key for Change, about Pain into Purpose and Victim to Victorious. Keep it locked.
Hey my people, it's your girl Key. I'm here. This is just a quick interview on Unique FM. I was tell him, call me when you're ready to go back. When you're ready to go. I'm here. I'm talking all things, my journey. I'm talking about the challenges of life, how we deal with the challenges of life. And fundamentally, when I go back, I'm going to be talking about the problem in considering ourselves a victim and how we go from being a victim to being victorious. It's your girl, Keely Taverner. I'm talking on Unique FM about the realities of life and how tricky it is out there to navigate, but there is a rhythm and a flow to life. So if this is of benefit to you, if my story, if you hear it and there's things in this that speak to you, feel free, inbox me. Let's start the conversation because we know life is far from easy. But if you do have any questions for the 1 million people out there listening, because the numbers is just exponentially high, do feel free to ask me a question. I'm just waiting for the break. It's all good. So do let me know. As I said before, it's your girl, Keely Taverner. I'm here. I help all manner of people with all manner of life dilemmas. The challenge for many of us is adversity comes to all of us. Yeah. And some of us have had it really unfair. Some have had it far worse. Some of you lot got too much. And I'm here to tell you, it is your responsibility to learn how to overcome it. Being angry, it's understandable. Blaming others, it's understandable. But some of that is just going to keep you stuck and going in vicious cycles. You're not going to be able to maneuver on. You're going to be the Betty, the Debbie Downer who's complaining about something that happened 20 years ago. You're still giving it life. How do you learn to let go? How do you learn to learn the lessons in adversity? And that is the key. You have to learn, I believe, anyhow. That's my bias. If you don't like how I do it, you know there's always someone else who can sing you a different song. So how you have to, well, in my view, you have to learn to find the lessons in adversity. I'm here. I've also been talking about, well, I don't know, we haven't touched on it yet. I do think I do talk a lot though, don't I, poor thing? I bet he can't get a word in edgeways. I do think also that what we touched on just before we did the interview was the topics that we might be talking about. And I said, you know, the hyper alpha female. Hyper alpha females, we intimidate guys. And one of the reasons we can intimidate guys is because we don't do vulnerability. So the key, girls, we got to do vulnerability. I know it's difficult. I know it's hard, but ask. And if they can't deliver, then you know exactly what you're dealing with. What we must learn to ask. We must need to let people know that we need help, that we're not Shira and we don't have all the answers. It's your girl Key. I'm here. I'm live. I'm just recording this because, well, why not? And we're talking all things life. We're talking key for change, how I've got where I've got, and how I assist people. And one of the ways that I'm assisting people more and more now is through groups. And that's a part of my practice that I really want to focus on more. I've just written the Empath's Self-Protection course. Big up to my assistant, Claire, and I. Devon is also a part of the team, and we're just bringing ideas together. And if, you know, Empath's Self-Protection is what I have developed for women or men who keep finding themselves in narcissistic abusive relationships. So empaths, there is a lot of kind of pop psychology. Everybody's talking about empaths because people are becoming so much more knowledgeable about narcissism. Thank you to Donald Trump. And I think it's a wonderful thing that people are now becoming aware. Yet one of the things that I notice is everybody is now becoming an empath. And, you know, if you're not careful, you can make yourself a bit of a victim. So my course goes in, we keep it real because doing fake ain't going to help you. Yeah, we keep it real. And it's going to be a 6-week course, and it's going to focus on helping you to learn how best to protect you. For a lot of empaths, they do not know how to protect themselves. And what will happen is you'll become bitter and resentful when things don't come back to you. Because we're the kind of folk, yeah, we give a whole lot. We give a whole lot, but we don't always get back in return. Therefore, it can be very, very frustrating. Life can be very frustrating. And sometimes caring can feel like a curse. If you know what I'm talking to the million people out there, give your girl your heart, give your girl your like. If you ever feel like caring is a curse, these things are so annoying. Now it's all loose. Do let me know. If you feel like caring is ever a curse, then do let your girl Key know. I'm here, I'm live on Unique FM. And you know what I love about being live on the Unique FM? It's from Brent. Like, Brent is my ends. That's where your girl Key grew up. So I feel very able to talk about the challenges of what it means to come from Brent Northwest 10 and how, you know, low expectations or mediocrity can get the best of so many of us. I know so many bright and wonderful minds who end up just kind of like surviving. My peeps, we got to learn to thrive out here. How can you learn to thrive? How can you learn to take the opportunities that are available to us, because they are opportunities, and use that to your advantage? One of the tools that I've used for my own advantage is education. I've used education to transform my life. I am no way, shape or form, I'm unashamed about it. I believe in education as a powerful tool, as a transformative tool, and it's a tool that I have used to my advantage. Now, that's not for everybody, fair enough, but you gotta have something. You know, I couldn't dance, I couldn't rap, I couldn't shake my tootie. So I found something. And that is exactly what I encourage everybody to do. Find your thing. Find what you love. What are you good at? Here it is. It's a Sunday. This is work. This is work. That don't feel like work to me. She go, Key, I'm a talker. So, you know, it doesn't feel like work. And I just love exactly what I do. You know, I've created everything I could ever want through Key for Change and through the grace of the Most High, because not a lot, you know, if you go into traditional mental health circles, we're not talking about faith. And I'm talking about ram down your throat religion. I'm talking about the principle of faith, because for any time that you want to change, faith will be of the utmost importance here. In the words of George Michael, you got to have faith. It's your girl Key. It is 13:07 and I'm waiting for this man to come back so we can have a chat. All things life, my journey, how I assist people. And one of the most important things that I do to assist people is I guess I give people my all. I listen to what's going on in their life. And with my creative mind, I'm very good at finding solutions to situations that can often leave us feeling helpless. Shigal Keely Taverner. I am a psychotherapist and I'm fast running out of something to say. So maybe I'm going to bring this to an end. And when he calls me back, you can catch me on the other side. Do take care of you, because if you don't, no one is coming to save you. You got to learn to be your own best friend.